Good morning, Barada. The science fiction of yesterday is today becoming a reality in new products and services that we won't be able to imagine having lived without. The pace and scope of groundbreaking scientific advances of the fourth industrial revolution are transforming the agriculture industry through the fusion of smart and connected technologies. I'd like to talk with you about agri-tech, in particular the investments made in agriculture technology and innovations. Are we making the right investments? Or to put it another way, are we developing the right agriculture technologies and innovations? While at university, I had the opportunity to study the dot-com bubble. Share prices of internet companies increased much faster and higher than their peers, due mostly to speculation caused by the excitement and euphoria of the new internet age. The frenzy of buying internet-based stocks was overwhelming. So, as many internet-based companies, the so-called dot-coms, were starting up. Instead of focusing on the fundamental company analysis, which involved the study of company revenue generation potential and business plans, many investors focused on the wrong metrics, such as web traffic growth and the number of engineers startups had. Most startups did not adopt viable business models, such as cash flow generation, hence they were overvalued and highly speculative. It accumulated in a bubble that grew rapidly for several years before crashing in 2000. As a banker, I witnessed firsthand the bursting of another bubble, the property bubble, that had been growing since early 2000 and burst in 2008. Similar to the dot-com bubble, there had been a property buying frenzy with investors pouring money into the market in the belief that property prices never fall. During the growth of the bubble, newspapers were full of articles and supplements discussing the latest deals, price movements, and how investors were making millions. When I returned to live and work in Wales, I noticed that newspapers were beginning to be filled with articles about investments in agri-tech. These articles were not only appearing in Farmers Weekly and Farmers Guardian, but also in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journals, and Bloomberg. And they brought back memories of other bubbles that I had witnessed and experienced. Investors' interest in agri-tech should not be a surprise. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of efficient supply chains and alternative ways of growing, processing, transporting, and selling food to consumers. But even before the pandemic, the investment case for agri-tech was based on the need to feed a growing population while reducing our impact on the planet. $52 billion was invested globally in agri-tech during 2021. Sounds like a lot, right? But 36% of this was investment in e-grocery technology, which improves consumer conveniency but does little to help tackle climate change. Only $20 billion was invested in upstream technologies, those technologies that have a direct impact on agriculture and food production. This accounted for only 3% of total global venture investments in 2021. Last week, we heard how the world population had reached 8 billion and is projected to reach 9 billion by 2037. But as it was pointed out to me, these numbers only tell half the story. The share of city dwellers in the world's total population reached 50% in 2007, and it's still rising. The number of people of working age is set to decline in coming years. That means hiring farm labor will be more difficult, and there will be greater demand for technologies to support food production. The objective of limiting global warming will have an impact, both negative and positive, on the agriculture industry. Certain farming practices are accused of having an adverse impact on the environment, but these are also part of the solution. Climate change is a threat to the industry. Last year, the Met Office published a report that examined the effect of climate change on the dairy sector over the next 30 to 50 years. The research found that the heat stress in dairy cattle is projected to increase significantly in key dairy regions of the UK, particularly in the southwestern part of England. Our food system needs to be part of the solution to climate change, while also meeting the challenge of feeding a growing population in a way that is sustainable for the planet. This can only be achieved through the adoption of new technology and changes in business practices. UK agriculture has been successful. One of the greatest unsung triumphs of human progress is that most people are no longer working on the land. That is not to demean farming. Rather, it is to praise the monumental productivity growth in the industry, achieved almost entirely by the application of technology in the form of farm machinery, fertilizer, and other agrochemicals, along with improvements in crops and livestock. Total factor productivity growth, the efficiency with which producers combine inputs to make outputs, has driven most of the growth in UK agriculture production. In the early 1990s, over 2% of the UK labour force worked on a farm. Now that proportion is below 1%. But current farming methods are getting more expensive. When considering explicit and implicit costs, we are seeing an increase in impact on the climate, water consumption, deterioration in soil health, and complex supply chains. The fourth industrial revolution is unique in terms of speed and scope. Speed with which new ideas are spread around the world, and scope, every company across every industry is now compelled to reconsider their traditional ways of doing business to keep pace with the rapidly changing technology and consumers' expectations. It is the fusion of new technologies and their interaction across the physical, digital, and biological domains that make the fourth industrial revolution fundamentally different from previous ones. All of the innovations seen in the fourth industrial revolution are made possible and are enhanced through digital power. Gene sequencing, for example, could not happen without progress in computing power and data analytics. Advanced robots would not exist without artificial intelligence, which itself largely depends on computing power. Given the potential transformative effects of upcoming technology on farming, both positive and negative, it's vital that we pause and reflect before the revolution takes hold. It must work for everyone, whether it be farmers, regardless of their size or enterprise, landowners, farm workers, rural communities, or the wider public. Yet, I found that policymakers and the media are framing the fourth agricultural revolution as overwhelmingly positive, without giving much focus to the potential negative consequences. Many previous agricultural technologies were greeted with similar enthusiasm before leading to controversies later on, such as with the first genetically modified crops and early agrochemicals. Given wider controversies surrounding emergent technologies like nanotechnology and driverless cars, unchecked or blind techno-optimism is unwise. We mustn't assume that all of these new farming technologies will be adopted without overcoming certain barriers. Precedent tells us that benefits are likely to be spread evenly across society and that some people will lose out. Robotic milking of cows provides a good example. A farmer told me that using robots had improved his work-life balance and allowed a farm worker to avoid dexterous tasks on the farm. But they had also created a different kind of stress due to the resulting information overload and the perception that the farmer needed to be monitoring data 24/7. There are also potential power inequalities to this new revolution. I found that some farmers were optimistic about a high-tech future, but others wondered whether those with less capital, poor broadband availability and IT skills, and access to advice on how to use the technology would be able to benefit. History suggests technology companies and large farm businesses are often the winners of this kind of change, and benefits do not always trickle down to smaller family farms. In the context of the fourth agricultural revolution, this could mean farmers not owning or being able to fully access the data gathered on their farms by new technologies, or reliance on companies to maintain increasingly important and complex equipment. The new technologies of the fourth industrial revolution offer promising opportunities to transform agriculture and the food systems. While instances of sizable returns from great opportunities exist, many commercial investors seek to invest in technology innovations appear to have a more definite or higher expectation of financial returns than what the current innovations may offer. In addition, many innovation enterprises are still small. Their needs for capital can range from equity to debt to working capital or even grants, depending on the task required to scale up or reach commercial viability. And the amounts required are likely to be substantially lower than the floor of most commercial investors. Investors will need generous amount of patience, a willingness to tolerate some unpredictability in returns, and perhaps some new vehicle for both finding and making relatively small commitments efficiently. Alternative metrics are required, such as return on energy or environmental efficiency, for technology investment decisions in agriculture. Such measures will ensure the allocation of finance to support those technologies that will allow farmers to reduce their impact on the planet while increasing food production. The development of such technologies will need to be supported by the government, who alone has the capacity to make investment decisions not based on financial returns. Also, instead of blind optimism, we need to identify where benefits and disadvantages of new agriculture technology will occur and for whom. This process must include a wide range of people to help create a society-wide responsible vision for the future of farming. Diolch yn fawr iawn.